So I'm here today with Fred Krieger of Scoro. Fred, could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes, hi, great to meet you. I'm Fred. I'm CEO and founder of Scoro, which is a software company, and our platform is essentially an end-to-end work management solution, mainly targeting consulting companies and agencies. So it's basically a software platform that allows them to manage their entire workflow, basically from start to finish in one place. And my background is mainly in the software industry, but a fun fact about me is also that I've been involved in the music industry for the past 20 years. So I have experience managing both artists, musicians, and also developers and engineers. Kind of a combination of both worlds.
So that's quite a spread. And so where are you talking from at the moment, Fred?
Um, at the moment, I'm in a tiny beach town in Estonia, which is called Pärnu. So um, it's the summer capital of Estonia, one of the small Baltic countries.
It was a nice looking backdrop anyway. So Fred, can you tell me what are the weapons of mass distraction?
That's a good question. We actually coined that term while observing the way brain workers manage their time, and the way interruptions actually define more and more of our working days. So essentially, it's a term, kind of an umbrella term that's supposed to describe anything that keeps us from actually focusing on what's important, focusing on what has to get done, and instead keeps us from fragmenting our workflow, switching, multitasking, firefighting, etc. So some of it is obvious, like chatter in an open office, different kinds of pings and rings and dings we get on our phones. But some of it is kind of like wolves in sheep's clothing. It's some of the applications, some of the tools that are supposed to help us, that actually they kind of do, but at the same time they're making us even more reactive in our daily work. So essentially everything that keeps us from being proactive and moves our behavior more to the reactive side of the scale.
Okay, and so I understand one of your ideas is a chief time officer. So what does a chief time officer do? Why is that a good idea?
Yeah, so you know how it's interesting how almost every company has an accounting person, or a CFO, or a controller, or a finance team, for that matter. Even small companies with a couple of dozen people, they always have someone managing their money. So someone that knows the answer to questions like how much did we spend, how much did we, how big was our revenue. So they know these answers down to every single penny. How much they're paying for coffee, the latest company party, just to name a few examples. And at the same time, when we talk about these companies in the business of time, which essentially include consulting companies, agencies, everyone that makes their money only by selling their time, for some reason, these companies are far from being as precise about their time as they are about money. So even in those companies where time is the ultimate asset, time is the only way for them to generate any revenue, they tend to be very precise when it comes to money. They know every penny, but they for some reason tend to be quite vague when it comes to time. And here's what where the chief time officer concept comes in. So we again, a term we have coined, we've also trademarked, and we are looking to publish quite a bit of material, thought leadership material around the chief time officer. We have defined a framework. Essentially, I mean, not to go into too much detail. Essentially, it's about managing your time as granularly as you would manage your money, and the chief time officer would be the person in the organization who would be in charge of all that related activities. So essentially, that's what it means.
Okay, so where do you stand on the whole working from home versus working from an office debate? And how does your technology play into that?
I think it's quite clear that inevitably it's going to be a hybrid model. I guess depending on the industry, depending on the role, the balance can slightly vary. But I don't really think there would be any reasons, especially when we talk about knowledge workers, or as some call them, brain workers. There's really no reason to keep them in an office from 9 to 5 from Monday to Friday. So I guess what the pandemic did was just kind of accelerate that evolution by probably 10 years at least, maybe even more. And when it comes to the way we look at it in our company, we've been for remote working for a while now. It doesn't really matter where anyone works from, whether it's from their home, from their office, from a remote location, as long as they're productive, as long as they do what the purpose of the role is. It doesn't really matter where they are. And I'm pretty sure I would be ready to bet on it that this is the future in most companies. And you see these trends, when you look at companies like Dropbox closing down their offices, moving to smaller offices, and actually redesigning their offices to be more of kind of these lounges where people get together, and less resemble the office as we know it today. So there will definitely be a need for the team to get together once in a while, and companies may choose to decide whether they want to own that premise or rent that premise where the team gets together, or obviously there's more and more companies that go fully remote, and then once or twice a year rent a villa somewhere, or a huge holiday, like a complex of holiday homes, get their team there, spend some FaceTime, and then go back to kind of full remote working. And yeah, I mean, it looks like a trend that is here to stay, absolutely, regardless of the pandemic, whether it's gonna come back again, whether it's gonna get more serious, or whether it's gonna completely disappear. I think what it's done to remote and hybrid working, that effect will stay with us forever.
So my dream then of having a job in London but working from Santorini or Crete or somewhere is still on then, is it? There's still a chance that could happen.
Absolutely, I'm very sure. As long as you don't need to do something physical, when you need to build a wall or dig a hole somewhere, you probably cannot do it from Santorini, at least not yet. But if it's something that can be done over the internet, I mean, the pandemic actually showed us whether you're a couple of dozen miles away or whether you're across the ocean, we're all working through Zoom or through any kind of digital channels. It doesn't really matter where we are. So why spend, especially in these kind of big cities, why spend hours a day commuting to the office if you could use that time with your family, you know, for learning something new, for, you know, taking more time off, etc. So I would absolutely see no reasons why this trend shouldn't continue.
Well, that's good news. I'm pleased to hear that. So, so you don't necessarily think. So, do you think then the era of a row of desks might be coming to an end, and that when employees do get together, it's in a more relaxed environment?
Well, I mean, I personally actually like the office, and I think it's highly dependent on where you can focus better. So it's all about focus, and if you know, have a relatively small apartment, you have small kids, then probably the answer to where can I focus best is in an office. But if you know, you don't have small kids, and you have perfect conditions working from home or from a hotel room, or, you know, from Santorini for that matter, then and that's your place of focus, then that's where you should be working from.
Presenteeism. You've got to be there. You've got to be seen to be visible, to be doing the work. Is that an outdated concept, do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there are only a few industries where it might still be somewhat relevant, but when it comes to kind of knowledge work, innovation, I wouldn't think of any companies where that would make any sense nowadays.
So do you think we're seeing a change in the relationship between employer and employee? Is the employer less like a boss and more like a kind of first among equals, do you think?
Yes, absolutely. I think that trend is ongoing, and definitely another trend that was accelerated with the pandemic. We actually saw that last spring when the pandemic hit. We saw a lot of customers who were, well, I don't want to call it in panic, but they were quite in shock about what had happened, and that they had never, I mean, the managers had never had any experience managing their team while they weren't there, right? So and that was completely new for them. So they I think one of the biggest things that needed to change was just the mindset of understanding, you know, the fact that you don't need to see people do the work in order to be happy about it, right? And of course it wasn't with everyone. It was just a few customers, but we saw that, and I think what has changed most is the trust. I guess there are many managers that now, thanks to the pandemic, finally had to kind of learn to trust their team completely.
Fair enough. So what about the Scoro technology? How does that play into this discussion?
Yeah, so when it comes to our platform, the way we see things is that the fewer places you have to log in, the less you have different applications that basically fragment your data, the faster decisions that you need to make can be made. So essentially, instead of juggling between, say, 12 to 15 different applications for getting work done on a daily basis, whether it's your calendar, your task list, something for quoting, something for managing your invoicing, something for managing cost, etc., etc. It's all in one place. It's all integrated. It's all interlinked, which means that any question you might have, it takes just a few clicks and you get the answer. And the biggest effect of that is not just the fact that you have fewer applications, you have fewer apps to get familiar with. The main benefit of all of that is that you end up having drastically less needless meetings, ad hoc conversations, or drive-by meetings, as they're called, and just more time and energy focusing. That's how our technology comes into play.
Okay, Fred Krieger, thank you very much indeed.